The Holy Book, Sefer Hayashar, Episode 90. On the eve of Pesach, that is the 14th of Nisan, a person should rise early in order that he should not err, heaven forbid, in the eating of leavened bread after the 4th hour of the day. The day begins at dawn when the sky begins to lighten, showing a white line stretched along the eastern horizon from north to south. As explained by the Rambam in his commentary on Barachos 1.1 and in Tosafos Yom Tov, there it is the main opinion. On account of our many sins, many people have become very lenient about this matter, consuming leaven even after the 4th hour. Woe to them for committing such a grievous sin and willfully violating the words of the sages. To them applies the verse, "One who breaches a fence shall be bitten by a snake." Koheles 10.8. They bring upon themselves a tremendous punishment for no reason. Experience has shown, and my mentors have also passed on to me, that one who is lenient in consuming leaven after the 4th hour will not escape without some major consequence that very year. If no consequence befalls him, he should be even more concerned, for it is clear that the heaven is allowing his guilt to accumulate in order to remove him from the world suddenly through some terrible misfortune. Therefore, every person who fears Hashem and trembles at his word should guard himself against violating this prohibition, for all the words of the sages are like coals of fire. I have observed that many people are so absorbed with satiating their throats that they fill their stomachs with excessive amounts of food on the morning before Pesach and then drink to intoxication. Because of this, when the time comes to bake matzahs for the mitzvah, they arrive in an inebriated state to assist with the baking of the matzah, and the mitzvah and their minds are not clear enough to keep in mind the sanctity of the matzahs. Besides this, they err in the sale of the leaven to the Gentiles. And because they fail to transact it properly, their sale ends up being of no value. All of this comes about simply because they are so absorbed with saturating their throats and pursuing their heart's desire. This is not the way of Israel, the congregation of the holy people. Rather, all their affairs and deeds must be tended to justly, with insight and understanding, with purity, fear, and awe, for the sake of purifying the soul, and not for the pleasure of the body. This is especially true with regard to the mitzvahs of the festival with which they are involved at this time, some of which carry the penalty of excision. An oral tradition has been handed down to me that through all the effort that a person exerts in honoring of the Yom Tov of Pesach and the weariness and exhaustion it causes, he kills the harmful spirits called the plagues of men. Thus, one who immerses himself in the preparations for the days of the Yom Tov of Pesach repairs the harm caused by the spilling of seeds. Every heart knows its own failings, and there is almost no one among us who is free from this sin. Therefore, it is an incumbent upon every man of Israel to remedy what he is able. Then Hashem, in his abundant mercy and loving kindness, will accept the good intentions of his people Israel and expedite our redemption. Every person is obligated to purify himself on Yom Tov, Rosh Hashanah 16b. This clearly does not mean literally on Yom Tov. Rather, he must purify himself before the onset of Yom Tov, so that he may greet Yom Tov in holiness and purity. The esoteric significance of a festival is that it embodies the sanctity of the two divine names, Hey Vav Yud Hey and Aleph Hey Yud Hey, spelled out in full, like this, Yud Hey Vav Hey. 20 plus 15 plus 22 plus 15 equal 72. And Aleph Hey Yud Hey, which is 111 plus 15 plus 20 plus 15 equal 161. The total, 72 plus 161, comes to 233, which is equal to the value of the word regel, festival. Thus, when a person purifies himself for Yom Tov, he should have in mind that he is drawing upon himself the sanctity of these two names. The Arizal writes in Shar HaKavanos 78a that while one is ritually immersing himself, one should have in mind to accept the illumination of the two names, Hey Vav Yud Hey and Aleph Hey Yud Hey, since this is the significance of the mitzvah of purifying oneself on the regel. But if he is elderly, weak, or infirm, he should not endanger himself for the sake of the mitzvah, because the Holy One, blessed is He, does not wish for people to endanger themselves. Rather, he should purify himself by pouring over his body 9 kav of water drawn in a bucket, or he should simply bathe his body from the waist down, and this too will be accepted with the favor by the Holy One, blessed is He. Afterwards, one should study as much as possible the laws of Pesach appearing in the Torah. Our teacher, the illustrious Rabbi Yeshaya Siegel, writes in the Shlah, before immersion, it is praiseworthy to wash one's body in hot water. Although this is true on the eve of every Yom Tov, it is especially important on the eve of Pesach. The reason for this is clear in light of what is explained in the Zohar, Parshas Vayikra 95b. There is taught that on the 14th of Nisan, while the chametz is being purged by fire, a person should have in mind that at that very moment he is becoming a free man, for he is leaving the bondage of the evil inclination, which is identical with the Satan who rules over us in this bitter exile. The burning of the chametz indicates that the evil inclination will also be eliminated from the world, after which we will all be holy and Hashem will dwell in our midst. At that time, all the shells of impurity and all the wickedness will disappear from the earth, and Hashem will be one, and His name will be one. Zechariah 14.9. This is why the destroying of the chametz takes place specifically on the 14th of Nisan, because that is when the moon is full and the shells of impurity have no dominion over the children. For the shells of impurity would like to invoke judgment against them and cause them to be afflicted with epilepsy. Heaven spare us. But they cannot do so when the moon is full. When it is not full, however, they do have the ability to afflict the children with the disease mentioned above. This is alluded to in the verse, let there be lights, ma'oros, in the firmament. Bereshis 1.14. The word ma'oros is missing the letter vav, so that it can also be read me'iros, which means a curse. Therefore, before one's burning the chametz, he should have in mind that the process be carried out thoroughly in order that the shells of impurity will be purged. In keeping with this, I have witnessed a worthy custom, according to which the lulav branches are placed with the chametz and the fire. Although there is an esoteric reason for this, the one mentioned frequently by the authorities is that since they were used for one mitzvah, let them be used for another mitzvah. The point to remember is that the elimination of the chametz symbolizes liberation from the sitra achara. Therefore, it is very important to immerse oneself in hot water at that time, just as it was the way of freed captives to bathe themselves in hot water. Afterwards, one should engage in the fashioning and baking of the matzahs, through which one immerses himself in an activity of the highest sanctity. The matzahs for the 2 Seder nights should be made with joy and happiness, for this is a unification of the Holy One, blessed is He, and His Shekhinah, as it is mentioned in the Zohar, Parshas Emor 95b. Because of this, the holy people of Israel prepare for the unification of the Holy One, blessed is He, and His Shekhinah the entire day of the 14th. For on that night there is aroused a holy supernal joining. This is the meaning of the verse. This is a guarded night for Hashem. Shemos 12.42. Why is the word guarded written in the plural? Shimurim, to indicate a combining. Regarding the covering of the table and the custom of decorating and beautifying the cushion for reclining, They are like the customs of the holy people of Israel. The main intent is to prepare a place of reclining in honor of the Holy One, blessed is He, and His Shekhinah. For this reason, the cushion should not be prepared, heaven forbid, by a non-Jewish maidservant, but by a Jewish woman. How fitting it would be if it could be done by a woman who is free of menstrual defilement. And if it could be done by a young girl who has never menstruated, obviously this would be the best and most praiseworthy of all. It states in the Zohar, Parshas Vayikra, Ibid, one must rejoice on that night because there is a rejoicing on high as well as down below. Therefore, one must recite the songs and praises of the night in joy and exaltation and refrain from any display of anger. The Zohar warns in a number of places, 2.40b and 202b. It is incumbent upon a person to recount the exodus from Egypt. And at the time of the recounting, the Holy One, blessed is He, gathers all His hosts and says to them, "Come and hear the relating praise in which they rejoice in the secret of their Master's redemption." Then they come and give thanks to the Holy One, blessed is He, for all those miracles and mighty deeds. Meanwhile, all the hosts of heaven give acknowledgement to the Holy One, blessed is He, regarding the holy people that He possesses on earth, who rejoice the joy of their Creator's redemption. Then the power and might of heaven are augmented, while Israel, through their recounting, lends power to their Master. And all the worlds are filled with fear of the Holy One, blessed is He. So you can see the tremendous significance of the recounting of the story of the Exodus. Therefore, one must take care to recite the Haggadah at an unhurried pace. One must not view it as a burden, heaven forbid. You must know that there is a positive scriptural injunction for each and every Jew to recall continuously throughout his life the miracles that the Holy One, blessed is He, did for our forefathers and for us. And when this day arrives, he must recount Hashem's kindness to His children, as it is stated, "And you shall say to your children on that day," etc. Shemos 13.8. This is the essence of the mitzvah of recounting the story of the Exodus every year and in every generation on Pesach night. In merit of this, the Holy One, blessed is He, will spread His wings over us continually to save us in every place and on every road, and will continue performing miracles and wonders on our behalf. But if a person views the recitation of the Haggadah as a burden to be fulfilled reluctantly or listlessly, without joy and intention of the heart, he will not merit having miracles performed on his behalf in times of danger. When one comes to the part of the Haggadah that reads an incident, a ma'aseh, involving Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Akiva, one should have in mind that the Arizal says about Pri-Eitz Chaim, Shar Chag Hamatzos, chapter 7. He explains that there are 370 lights on high, emanating from the two holy names appearing in the verses, "Who is God?" Like you, bearing iniquity and passing over transgression, etc. Micha 7.18. And Hashem, a merciful and gracious God. Shemos 34.6. For when the name Kael, Aleph Lamet, is spelled out in full, Aleph Lamed Endefe, Lamed Mem Dalid, is numerical value is 185. The numerical value of the two names in the verses thus totals 370. These 370 lights receive the souls of the Torah scholars who study with pure motives and are filled with awe of heaven. Then the 370 lights shine down upon their heads along with another 45. For this is the value of the four-letter name, what is spelled out like this: Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey. These 45 lights are granted to the scholars in the merit of their awe. Now, since the scholars of the Mishnah and the Talmud were undoubtedly flawless in their Torah and awe of heaven, they earned the illumination of these two sets of lights, indicated by the acronyms 370, Shin, Ayin, and 45, Mem, Hey. When these letters are rearranged, they spell out the words Ma'aseh, Mem, Ayin, Shin, Hey, an incident, as in the line from the Haggadah, an incident involving Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Akiva, etc. For the letters of the word Masa allude to the 370 and 45 lights, and we mention them in order that they will shine upon us in the merit of the scholars of the Mishnah and Talmud. You should be aware of an important insight taught by the Ari, Siddur Rabbi Asher 370a, regarding the passage beginning with the words, and this, the he, is what stood by our forefathers, etc. And continuing on with the words, and the Holy One, blessed is He, delivers us from their hands. He writes that one should raise one's cup and hold it aloft, beginning with the words, and this is what stood by. Because the words, and this, the He, alludes to the Shekhinah who remains with us at all times while we are in exile. The nations of the world and the Satan rise up to destroy us with harsh decrees. Heaven forbid. But the Shekhinah stands by us, delivering us from the utter destruction that they wish to wreak upon us with their oppressions and decrees. Another insight to be aware of, and which I believe to be correct, is that when our teacher Moshe killed the Egyptian, it seems to have been the beginning of Egypt's downfall. And from that time forth, their guardian angel seems to have been on the wane. For the Ari writes in Likudei Torah 55a, Shar HaPesukim 26a, that Moshe killed the Egyptians with a divine name, Yud Chaf Shin, which is one of the components of the 42-part name. This name derives from the verse, who appointed you to be an officer or a judge? Mi simacha la'esh sar v'shofet. Shemos 2.14. For this name had the power to subdue the Egyptians and to wreak vengeance upon them. King David alludes to it in the verse, Judge me, Hashem, according to my righteousness. Shaftenu Yud He Vav He. Ketzitki, Tehillim 7.9, the acronym of which also spells out this name. In view of our obligation to relate the story of the Exodus, it seems to me that a hint to the divine name mentioned above can also be seen in the acronym of the phrase, a night of guarding, Leil Shimurim, Shmos 12.42. For the value of the letters Lamet Shin, 330 is equal to that of the name Yud Chaf Shin, 330. This night is called a night of guarding because throughout the night we are protected from harmful spirits. Pesachim 109b. In acknowledge of this, we refrain from reciting the bedtime Shema on this night in order to demonstrate our faith that the Holy One, blessed is He, will protect us from all harmful spirits and other agents of misfortune on the 2 nights of Passover. For the name mentioned above will vanquish all evildoers. Therefore, our duty is to elaborate on the story of the Exodus, and whoever does so at great length is worthy of praise. Based on the words of my teacher and mentor, Rabbi Yosef, Yesod Yosef, Chaps 84 to 85.